Itzkovitz, Head of Growth from SimpleHash, Andreas Tsamados, co-founder of Fileverse, Chelsea Kubo, Operation Lead of Firefly, and our moderator, Zhong. And yeah, I imagine it's going to be really important. We got to know what to do with our data when it comes to social applications. So yeah, maybe we can get started. Make sure also, I was told to tell all the panelists this time that you should keep the mic close to your mouth when you speak, because then it's really difficult for the speakers to catch your voice. But yeah, Joey, you want to take it away?
Okay, thanks everyone for coming. And I believe this is going to be a great show to talk about our panel topic today, data on chain. I guess we need to start from the most essential one. What's the meaning of data on chain? And some fundamental concepts and how it's different from traditional data storage. And let's start from Xiao.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. So I think, in general, for all the data on the blockchains, they are on the blockchain is transparent. This one? Oh, cool. Yeah. So all the data on the blockchain, they are transparent and they are open. Everybody can view it. Everybody can see the data inside. The problem is that I don't think only store the data on chain is enough. What the beauty of blockchain is that you can see a consequential, you can see a time series of data. For example, for a DeFi or GameFi, you can see the data from day one, how the liquidity is generated, how user is getting the NFTs, how user is getting interact with the games. So this is the beauty of the data on chain, and more importantly, not only the logic, because we all know that the logic comes to a smart contract. Not only the logic is on chain, all the time series data is on chain, which means that for all the users and for all the developers, you are able to do like a soft fork about any version of the software and the soft fork of any version of the GameFi. So I think this is the importance and this is the beauty of data on chain from my side.
Yeah. Ditto. I think transparency and immutability are extremely important. I even think that now with the resurgence of RWAs and tokenization of real world assets, now we're able to see a lot more data for assets that are being tokenized, and that's a beautiful thing because before we didn't really know if what we were seeing was very verifiable, and now I think that we do.
I think that we have an explanation, and most of us know the fundamentals and foundations of how a blockchain works, and that it is immutable, it's transparent, and that data is basically on a public ledger, and that's why a lot of us got into the Web3 ecosystem in the first place. But then when we take it to another step and we evolve that on top of it, we see where we are now, and we're talking about Web3 social, and Web3 social adds another layer to that, where we have the ability to own our data and our on-chain data in the form of digital identities, in the form of being able to socially interact with others online, and even to monetize our own content within social networks, for lack of better words, which is a different approach, and it's an evolution on top of the early stage of how data was transacted and viewed on blockchain. So that's, I guess, the stage where we're at now.
So probably they were better across the chip and all the better songs.
Okay. So maybe just an easy way of talking about data on chain is that the goal of a lot of the people probably here on the panel and crypto as well is to reintroduce more internet freedom on the current state of the web. So today, most of our data is behind walled gardens, despite European regulation having things like GDPR that makes it right for a user to exit their data, exit their account without requiring, an app or a company to say, yeah, you can do that, you can take your own personal data and port it somewhere else. And blockchains actually give us the transparency, the control, and most importantly, strict global consensus that can allow us to actually create new experiences that force and guarantee the ability of the individual to exit their data, exit their account, compose it with others, etc.
That's a great statement. And I want to roll back to the Josh. You just mentioned about the real world asset tokenization. I mean, that's exactly what the Web3 world and the traditional assets can bring to link. When we discuss how to make data on chain, is actually we are talking about store these real world assets, metadata on chain. Like you want to have on chain a verifiable credential to attest if the asset has a link with the asset when you are holding.
Yeah, there's a lot of real world asset companies that are already, coming about, like Courtyard or Kettle, where they're storing the metadata of these real world assets, a lot of collectibles in particular, watches, sneakers, Pokemon cards, and it's also allowing people to do more with these assets without having to transact them physically, which is something that we've never been able to see before, like take out decentralized loans or be able to transact with someone across the world without having them physically by your side. So it's pretty cool.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Now we can move to another interesting topic. Is how do you see data integrity and its importance on-chain data aggregation? Because this data, they are always stored in data silos, and it's hard to make data easy to read. That's why there's a lot of tools doing on-chain data investigation, visualization. I think this is going to trend because we will extract more value from this raw data. So who wants to be the first? We don't necessarily fix in
I could start. So at SimpleHash, that's pretty much our goal, is to aggregate all on-chain data, on-chain data and off-chain data. So we'll pull in all of the token metadata, media, transactions, sales, floor prices, because we know that it's difficult for developers not only to get on-chain data, but also to worry about the different standards on different chains. And at the end of the day, I think most developers just want to build applications that people want to use, and we want to make their lives easier. So I think that aggregating data and standardizing it is a really good way to do that. So I think that's the...
Thanks.
Yeah, and to that point, in terms of aggregation, it's also a good point for me to bring up Firefly and what our team is working on. So how we refer to Firefly is a social aggregator. So you have one interface, you have one app, and there's all these decentralized social applications now. There's Lens, there's Firecaster, Napster, Mastodon. So being able to view all of your feeds in one place and then be able to cross-post and post all at once, right? So that brings up the question of, is it centralized? And behind the scenes of how we build this, though, however, is using an approach that we only take the most simple metadata, and we use that to use the EID, so that's only for simply login purposes. Other than that, we're not collecting gender, we're not collecting age, we're not collecting location, and so none of this data is collected from us upon login, and then instead it's just used for a simple login purpose. That's how we're able to approach our data integrity. So you're able to use these decentralized applications on one interface and still know that you're still not giving your data away to a centralized entity.
Maybe two follow-on points, just to give different angles to this. One is the fact that all the data on chain is transparent and available does not necessarily mean that it should always be used, it should always be aggregated. Why? Because it can very easily be abused. Unfortunately, we don't have good privacy nor good anonymity on chain, so you have a lot of predatory projects that use that very data and data aggregation for nefarious purposes. I won't name them, but I will. Arkham Intelligence, I'm not a fan at all, and it gives actually an incentive for people type of data aggregation and selling that is not ideal. Second quick point is blockchains are for making blocks, and you heard it here first. And the thing that we've noticed in the past 2 years is that a lot of blocks are actually filled less with financial data, tokenized transactions, blah blah blah, and there is more and more content addressing, more and more content hashes. So this is a whole new space opening up in blockchains, and I think all of us in this panel are kind of capitalizing on that.
So I think for the data integrity is very important. I mean, when you do anything like the data aggregations, you must to be careful. I mean, a lot of kind of this data may make something like data polluted. So like 6 years ago, my partner and I published one paper about an interoperable avatar with multi-chain and cross games framework. Under that framework, I mean, we find some problems. So for example, if you have an avatar that can cross multiple chains and can cross multiple games, so how can you make sure that inside that game or inside that chain, there's no cheating or I mean, all the things are correct? It is really hard to verify. I mean, if the data is get polluted, I mean, all the data with the cross-chain games may become misleading, and the data and the avatar may be misleading all the users and misleading the whole game logic. So this kind of problems has no solutions today. I mean, maybe we have some fancy techniques like the mask ADA. I mean, the mask not for mask network, but for the algorithms and for the mathematics. You mask all the numbers in the end and you do the add-up check. Or maybe you can use some ZK snarks, but this problem still happens. I mean, this is the things I discovered. And also, I totally agree with Andreas. I mean, with the data aggregations, it's same problem is like bridge. There's something you need to trust. Otherwise, you cannot aggregate all the data belongs to the users. So when you trust something, or it is kind of a centralized point for applications or for users, how you can make sure that the centralized point will not betray you. So this becomes to the origin. I mean, why we can trust a bridge or why we can trust the centralized data aggregations. So this is the things I think we need to think about it.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think that when you're providing data or ingesting data, it's pretty good or ideal to be relatively unopinionated, which is an approach that we've taken. I mean, for the most part, yes, but there's some cases that you can't, like spam filtering, right? You need to have some sort of opinionation as to what is considered spam and what isn't. But overall, it's like we don't whitelist collections or content based on what it is. But again, like you said, it's not always impossible, which is why it's relatively unopinionated.
Yeah, I think you guys just pointed out very important points, including Chelsea mentioned about the DID stuff. Like all of these social network users, they have their public profile, but that doesn't mean they want to exposure or share their identities and personal data or social reactions voluntarily, because when these tech giants they try to monetize and your personal preference and give you the content feeds with the monetization, and that's a huge issue when we talk about data privacy. And since everything is on chain and it's transparency and immutable, and it's become make yourself hard to take back all the control. It's kind of a paradox to talk about data sovereignty. Yeah, maybe let's talk more about data privacy and data sovereignty.
Okay, So, hello. Yes. Since we're talking about data privacy and sovereignty, it's my cue to show a little bit Fileverse. So I'm one of the co-founders, and the goal was very simple. It's something that is shared also by the Mask team, the Firefly team, and it is to actually break our dependence on walled gardens. So the internet was made to be open. It was made to be open protocol, open networks. Anybody can join. They can control their own information, and they should access information. Remember the Declaration of Cyberspace Independence. Unfortunately, 3.1 billion people are using one centralized closed source collaboration and data storage suite, which is called Google. And it is very comfortable. It gives us the UX that we want. It gives us the ease of collaborating with anyone around the world, low latency, blah, blah, blah. But every day, your data is aggregated. It is sold to a bunch of 1,000 data brokers around the world that use that data to sell you some ads, some behavioral manipulation, surveillance of all sorts, or they will simply, because of an internal error, block you from accessing your account. Your account is also your data. One last example, 3 weeks ago there is this Australian pension fund that is worth $146 billion, and they lost all their data and all their backup data because the Google employee did a manual oopsie on Google Workspace. So it's catastrophic. It's not the type of status quo we should remain with or be comfortable with. And I think all the teams here are building against that and to provide a valuable and viable alternative.
I have a quick comment on it. So in terms of privacy-wise, when I'm using Lens protocol or I'm using Firecaster, Firecaster is a little bit different, but with Lens, I am using my own wallet. So I own my own NFT handle and I have my own account. And for those of you who use Lens, you guys are doing the same. But it is still in that open and transparent blockchain. So anything that I do on Lens protocol, whether that's collecting art or collecting content or posting my own or earning my own or monetizing my own content, that's all public and that's all on that public blockchain. I do think it's interesting to the evolution of that. So you could still own your own content and have ownership of your content, but have perhaps use a private wallet, for example, to connect in with your Lens protocol account. And so you could have privacy of your own, but still have a ownership. So I think that's another evolutionary stage, which as Stani was here earlier, he had mentioned that we're on stage 1 of Web3 social. So that's something that I'm thinking for the future. And that could be used for different purposes. People have different, there's different types of entities using Web3 social apps besides just individual users like companies, etc. So that's my thought on the privacy piece for Web3 social.
Sure. I think for Web3, from the nature, from the native Web3 innovations, the most privacy already become kind of fundamental problems. Nowadays, we do a lot of registration, not only on a lot of apps, Facebook, Instagram, all this kind of stuff. So this kind of registration is first, invade on your privacy. Second, it wastes you a lot of time. But for Web3 project, we have MetaMask, we have Trustword, we have everything. We just do a sign. Not only for us we have Web3, we have ChainIDE, all these kind of applications. You can just sign in with MetaMask. You click a sign in, then you become a user. You do not need to register with your phones, SMS. You do not need to register with your Gmail or anything. All this data you give to this website, you give to these applications. These are your own privacy. For Web3, if you are a native Web3 user or native Web3 builders, you keep your MetaMask, you just do a sign by yourself. So this is already kind of protect your privacy. So this is very cool ideas, and we should encourage all the Web2 companies to adopt our ideas and adopt our standards. Yeah, that is my point.
Yeah, and I guess to add to that, I think the problem before, at least within the last couple of years, was that a lot of the apps that were tackling privacy first, they weren't building good user experiences, but now there's like a lot of us that are helping these applications tackle the separate issues, and then they can focus on what they're building. So, but I agree with everyone on the panel. I don't have much else to add there.
Okay, it's very interesting sharing, and in your perspective, when we talk about the paradigm of social logging change, like from Web 1.0, Web 2.0, and Web 3, now we are in this era of Web 2.5, you always see the read-only and the read-write, and now we apparently can read-write all, but how many approaches or tools can allow Web3 users, they can really own their own data? That's a question, and it still needs a lot of education efforts to let users can effortlessly using this browser extension, or right now the seed phrase, we have already a lot of solutions like MPC or smart contract. And I want to bring out a follow-up question on how the user experience can be improved with the rewrite or new paradigm.
Yeah, usually the biggest point of friction, I think, in crypto is the own part. So, hey, you need a wallet to connect to my app. Hey, you need to give me a picture of your cat and your passport in order to get some tokens to then send to your wallet, to then maybe connect to my app, and maybe for it to be useful to you. So it's a bit too complicated. Thankfully, account abstraction is here, and it's very necessary. One point, just to connect what you were both saying, is in terms of login evolution, you can think a bit of wallets as like a revival of PGP. It's getting the private and public keys cryptography is getting the recognition it never had, or it never really got to. And now you have, what, 300 million wallet users around the world, something like that, depending on who's counting. So all of those wallet users are going to get a completely new experience nowadays with account abstraction. One good example is if you type on your URL bar d.docs.new, you can start using a crypto app without any wallet bothering you and without any account, without anything like that. So yeah, new UX.
How does that work?
How does what work? The d.docs.new. So everything is done locally, or as much as possible. Connections with your peers are secured through peer-to-peer networks. And the moment that you want to have more robust control over your data, for example, social recovery, cross-device compatibility, group ownership, you want to deploy a wallet. But you don't want to impose that on a user who's used to Google Docs. So they'll be just clicking one button, and on the browser internally, it creates a smart account that they can use.
Okay, so Chashi, you have something you want to comment?
Yes, I think he made a comment that I would have made first too, about the login, or just getting onboarded in the first place, and you need to wallet, and so first and foremost, that's a whole ordeal of someone who's brand new, how to do that, and what is it, it's a whole other process. just to get into the application, to use the application as it's meant to be used. So first I would say that, but in addition to it, I would say that there's always these tweaks and things that are just common with these early applications. The Web3 space, these teams, you see some really great apps that do not sacrifice for UX. I would give a shout out to Firefly for one, as having really great UX. But there's other social apps too, and you see that they really are, and all these teams are focusing on this to make it much more accessible, because social apps are meant to be used as a daily creator tool for anyone. It's supposed to be fun, right? But there's just little tweaks with that. So we don't have as big of teams as Facebook or Twitter. So they have huge companies, and so the ability to make a change or upgrade or fix something can be a lot different than with a Web3 application. But there's little things. So, for example, remembering you at login. That's just a small thing, but some apps are doing that. Remember yourself at login, you log in once, you can come back and you can use it in Web3, but then you'll use another app and you'll notice that you have to log in every time using your wallet. So these are just the little things that, the kinks to kink out in the Web3 space. And then also smoothing over how everything will all work together, and that's why we have built Firefly. We built Firefly because there's all these decentralized social applications, and you're hopping from one app to the next, and so you use one application in order to perform everything. So again, Web3 social is meant to be fun. So smoothing that all over to make it a more concise experience that people actually want to use consistently and frequently, I think that's how we will better the experience for users as they come into our ecosystem.
Yeah, and also I think that a major point of friction amongst new people entering the space is that they don't know the differences among the chains, right? So you'll have there's different chains that have different standards, and now there's a proliferation of new chains that all have different standards, and some are EVM, some are on Solana, some are on Bitcoin, and they're like, okay, so I can use my EVM wallet for this, then I can use my Solana wallet for this, and they can't talk to each other. So that's a major point of friction. Same with social applications, which is why we have apps like Firefly that are doing the aggregation on the back end, so you can actually use it in one interface. And I think that's super important. And the same thing goes for data and on-chain data. You have to make it easy for developers to access that data by allowing them to not have to worry too much about the different standards on different chains. Obviously, if they're building smart contracts, they should know those. But if they're just trying to build applications and pull in that on-chain data, then they should just be able to, access it however they're comfortable with.
So for me, I think there are two ways that we can approach the idea of that. The first way is how we should build Web3 projects or applications more user-friendly. This is kind of easy to say, but really hard to do that. For all the projects that we have done, for example, for Web3, we want to provide a frictionless user experience just with the URL. You can just log in, and also you can sign in with MetaMask and everything. You can just get into the autonomous world. And also for ChainIDE, you do not even need to log in. You can just open ChainIDE.com, you can start development. But this is only for the first things. These things is not that powerful, can make you become super powerful tomorrow, because for all the Web2 projects, for all the Web2 services, like Google, like Facebook, they raise billions of dollars and spend years to do cycles. For all the development, you need time, you need data, you need everything to create a better user experience. I think the second way we should approach is about to find some Web3 native innovations. These things should be super powerful. We should do something that Web2 cannot do that. Even nowadays, we see some services in Web3. Although there are Web3 services like OpenSea or Railroads, they still ban some areas. I mean, last week I was in Iraq. I'm doing the Web3 bootcamps for the Iraqi innovators and also Iraq coders. But they cannot access OpenSea. They cannot access Fileverse. I mean, even they are Web3 companies, but still do things in Web2 ways. I think we should do something in Web3 ways. I mean, some Web3 innovations, such as maybe Fireflies and also some other social apps. The things that you cannot delete, the data was on-chain, the data was installed on the blockchains. No one can stop because no one can stop Ethereum. So this is the Web3 native ways. I think we should also find more Web3 native innovations that will help our industry to get some killer app. Because these things, you cannot do that. Just like Red.Pay, I mean, this is also very useful. I mean, even in Iraq, you can use Red.Pay, I mean, deduct from your USDT and you pay something. Also in Netherlands, I also go to Netherlands, their central bank was bankrupt, but still you can use cryptocurrency to pay something. Because their central bank is bankrupt, there's no banks at all the Visa is not working. That means you need cryptocurrency as substitute as a national finance infrastructure. So this is the power of Web3, and this is the beauty of blockchain.
I really like what you have said. It reminds me how Alexandra city, Alexandra library has been burned by a big great fire. And when we talk about data on chain, actually we are thinking of how we protect our data, or broadly like human culture reservation, right? People use IPFS or RE or some on-chain storage solutions, codecs as well, right? And so the thing bring out a real concern is that how many people really want to reserve their on-chain digital footprint? I'm not sure if I use this term correctly, but we left so many digital footprints on social networks, and it has been consumed by these giant tech companies. They just manipulate our mindset, attention. So there's this concern is really about how you trade off balance the pros and drawbacks in these two sides. You want to preserve something, but you also want to hide something from your real life and from your online image. Yeah. How many time we left? Maybe we take this as our last question. Who wants to be first? To echo.
What was the exact question?
The question is like, how can we balance of data protection side and also hiding your own digital footprint in terms of privacy?
Yeah, great question. First of all, shout out to your analogy with the burning of the Great Library of Alexandria. This is why I walk around crypto conferences with my SciHub hat. They or she who made that website is preserving scientific knowledge that is important for researchers, for academics to actually do their work. Or somebody mentioned Aaron Schwartz in the previous panel. It's the same fight, and I think the innovation that comes out of Web3 is actually providing the infrastructure with the guarantees to actually protect the dissemination of information and knowledge, give it a verifiable source, and on the side of privacy, how do you mix that? There are different approaches. This is where it really depends on the use case. So for our approach at least, we end-to-end encrypt every information before it goes on chain. So yes, it is available. No, you can't do anything about it. And also removing any possible server that will capture footprints of your
Okay, wait, sorry to interrupt. You mean you will have like a moderation mechanism to do content censorship before a user can upload?
No, the user client side is encrypting all their data before it's ever posted either on a peer-to-peer network or on chain or kept locally, depending on the user needs. So this is one approach. The other approach is to actually obfuscate metadata. So when somebody is on your app, you don't want them to depend on you. We have this morbid thought experiment in the team, but if we all die tomorrow, can people continue using our app? And the answer must be yes. And you guarantee that by having different routes to access certain apps. For example, a public IPFS gateway to access a static website of whatever, Firefly, Fileverse, etc. So this is how we combine that.
Yeah, maybe we can do a Q&A session.
Sure. Yeah, sure. I don't know. Maybe we can check. Is there anyone in the audience that has a burning question they would like to ask the panelists?
Yeah, raise your hand if you get any simple or hard questions.
You want here? Sure.
How can your projects increase social on Web3, and how can we look forward to all the new innovations that you guys are bringing to the industry?
I think that to focus on onboarding, there's capturing the market in the Web3 space for one. So capturing the market of those who are already in the crypto space, who are now onboarding onto Web3 social. So grabbing them into using our application. Then, of course, there's the focus on onboarding outside of crypto and Web3. And that is where I think our entire industry is working, or does need to work on. Just introducing that we have this new innovation of a Web3 social ecosystem or different ecosystems, and there's different reasons to use it. There's the ability to monetize and own your own content. As we know, that's like the main value proposition of Web3 social right now, is owning your own content, having that, and it not being owned by some some centralized company. And so pushing that as the value proposition out to other social users who aren't already in Web3, I think that's something that the whole Web3 social ecosystem needs to be working on. And I like when I see Web3 social projects or communities not only talking about crypto. I like when I go on I go on Lens or I go on Farcaster and I see that they're not just talking about Web3 tech. I think that I'm tired of that. I've been in the industry for years, and so I don't need to hear people talk over and over again about how they're using account abstraction or what's their new tech innovation, etc. I'm on the social app because I want to see this industry grow and do cool and new things, and I want to use social apps like a social app. I want to see my friends. I want to know what's happening in their lives. I want to look at ASMR videos. I want to look at art. So this is what I'm hoping for, and I think that that's what is really used. That's what social is really used for. So now we can do new things with it. People can own their data. They can monetize it. They can still create ASMR videos, and they can own them.
So for us, we are building an autonomous world. So nowadays, I think the application is really important. I mean, we have too many inference. I think last time we said like 100 layer 2s and 100 more, they are on the way. So nowadays, we need more applications. We need to find some Web3 innovations. For us, we are trying to build Web3, it is an anonymous world, and we're trying to store all the game logic and all the on-chain data on the blockchain. So, I mean, we should do that because you should create something that's different from the Web2 games. You should create an open community and let everyone can achieve. It's the same idea, I mean, but what we really plan to do is we want to create a fully on-chain games that can store the data on Bitcoins, on Ethereum, on different blockchains, and can decode it to manifest the world. That's the thing that we are trying to do. Yeah.
I think on our end, our goal, again, is just to make developers' lives easier. So by continuously indexing the chains, especially if content is being put on chain and there's larger files being put on chain, we want to be indexing it, standardizing it, caching it. That way developers can access it and not have to worry about the long amount of time getting it from a decentralized storage provider. While it's important that it is stored we want them to be able to access it quickly and efficiently.
You asked how to onboard people, so okay, yeah. So just to build on what Chelsea said, outside of the crypto crowd, which is your obvious first target, my biggest advice is never mention decentralized, never mention account, never mention wallet, never mention account abstraction, never mention Vitalik, never mention chain and different types of chain, and just give them an app that they can immediately try out. If they like it, they stick, and then you can start exposing to them to the technology in the back.
Yeah, I think a problem right now is that most Web3 apps are catered to Web3 users. So if you do tell someone to just try out the app, they're just going to see a bunch of crypto bros talking about meme coins and speculating on stuff. So once we start moving past that, then I think we'll grow a lot quicker.
Okay.
We have another question back here as well, if you want to take it.
How many time left? Like 5 minutes?
We're like 10 minutes in.
We have 10 minutes. Okay, great. I think we can take one more question. Yes.
How do you guys think about deletion? So like immutability is good for lots of things, but also, especially I think when it comes to consumer applications, you know, you look at whether it's on the regulation side with GDPR, or you just look at, you know, I'm not thinking about moderation, although that's a very interesting question on itself, but just the individual level of like, I don't want this to, I mean, maybe somebody indexed it, right, and it does exist because it was public, but I would prefer it to be harder to find, let's say. Yeah.
It depends on your application, but in a lot of applications that actually post user data on chain, that is not just their transaction data. There are a few techniques. One is to encrypt the data before it is posted on chain. Ideally, you don't encrypt it, the user, him or herself, are encrypting that data. Second is that data is usually pointing at some off-chain data, so it's usually a content hash that points to off-chain data. That off-chain data can be dropped unpinned if you're on IPFS, if you're on RV, good luck. But if it's on IPFS and your app was built on it, you can do unpinning. You can reasonably expect that the network will not continue pinning your file when incentives have completely dropped. So there are those ways. And then there are future mechanisms that some teams are working on that looks like a bit of a self-destructing file after a certain amount of time has lapsed.
So I think the one of the rule of thumb is that please do not store your personal data on blockchain. That doesn't make sense. I mean, that doesn't make sense at all. I mean, no matter you're a developer or you're a user, please never store your personal data on the blockchain. I think it's around 6 years ago, Suji and I was in Beijing on the basement. So there's one project called Solid. It's created by the founder of World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee, and they are trying to make a small box inside that box you should store your personal data, and sometimes if you want to give a certificate to some other project, you can just sign with your personal wills and to sign the data to give some authority. I mean, what I mean is that please do not store your personal data on the blockchain. The things will not be able to redo it. Maybe something, for example, for some smart contracts, they have self-destruct. You can use the self-destruct to call the self-destruct and to destroy the smart contract, but it's not the way that you should do that. Please just store some Web3 information. I mean, this is very important. For me, I mean, there are some things that in Web3 you want people to know. Not my names, not my age, not my nationalities, but the things that, for example, if I do commit my code to Ethereum.org, then you can get the poke. I mean, I do it for several years. I get a lot of hopes to prove that I do some contribution to Ethereum. And also there are some things that we want to show that you go to Ethereum Yard. For me, I organize Ethereum Yard. We organize Ethereum Shanghai together with Mars. So all these Web3 stuff, the things we want to memorize, these are all the events, all the Web3 contributions. Please store that things on the blockchain. Not your personal data, not your personal name, not your SIM number, not things like that.
Yeah, I want to echo to Xiao says about usually say, please do not store my personal information. It sounds like a begging. That means you lose the control. You are begging these tech giants to not store your data. Then things getting worse. I know lots of Bitcoin community users, they don't even use Gmail or the whole Google account services. They hate. Nobody should. Amazing. Yeah, even it provides a lot of convenience and great UX. But at the end, I believe in Web3, a native builder, we will have better products. We are not going to compromise this. So maybe give the final giveaways. Could every speakers can give a one sentence takeaway message to the audience, to our friends and community. I will start from my side, okay? So my takeaway is like, take away your own data.
Okay, mine is you can open a new Google Doc by writing docs.new on your URL bar, and now you can write ddocs.new and have the decentralized alternative.
My takeaway is thank you for joining, and I think if you're not already on Lens Protocol, do get on board. I see a lot of the Lens creators here, so you can meet and mingle with them and myself, and you can use Firefly to cross-post across all of the Web3 social applications.
I think my one-liner would be, we need to build better user experiences to allow people to aggregate data on chain, and yeah.
For me, I think be a Web3 long-term builder and discover more Web3 native innovations. That's it.
Okay, amazing. Thank you everyone for your attention.